This is Mr. Kaufman here from High Five History, going over the decline of feudalism in medieval Europe. And in this brief video, I'm going to focus in on some of the political changes that come out of England during this time period and how these changes affected the decline and eventual end of feudalism. What's pretty amazing is this story is going to focus on just one family. It's going to focus on King Henry II, his son, King John, and then King John's grandson, King Edward I. So we'll start the story here with King Henry II, who made some legal reforms to England, essentially stating that the king had some traditional rights, and inside of those traditional rights was to uphold and enforce the law with royal courts. Now, what this did is it overthrew essentially the nobles and the feudal lords who traditionally enforced laws through their own court decisions. Now, this stated instead it was King Henry who appointed the court officials who then would determine people's guilt or innocence. Now, this got him into some trouble with the Roman Catholic Church, where him and his good friend Becket got into an argument. Because again, King Henry felt like it was his role, or the royal court's role, to uphold the law, including if it were to be a clergyman, right, a priest or a bishop or someone like that who committed a crime. Now, of course, the Roman Catholic Church felt like that was not a royal matter, but instead a matter that should have been taken care of by the church itself. So, what ends up happening is some of the stuff from the Constitution of Clarendon, right, some of these traditional rights stayed in place, but it also made him a little bit unpopular with the barons as well as the Roman Catholic Church. Now this leads us to his son, King John, and the Magna Carta. So King John, inheriting probably not the nicest of thrones, again, having the Catholic Church and the local nobility not so happy with him, he ends up being forced, right, to sign the Magna Carta, and which means Great Charter in Latin. Now, he was forced into this because he was really getting the barons upset by raising taxes. King John was trying very hard to keep the lands that England had in France and was not doing a good job of it. So he had to continually raise taxes for these foreign wars. He also tried to dip into some of the money and land that had been owned by the Catholic Church. So those are two places where he got people upset with him. The church actually excommunicated him, which only increased his unpopularity. Now, what the Magna Carta does is essentially it sets out 63 clauses or 63 rules or statements of things that the king could or could not do. Some of them promised people local fair trials, as well as saying that people had to have a fair punishment that went along with their crime. And it also stated that he would have to consult the nobility to raise taxes. Now, King John did not follow a lot of these clauses. However, a lot of them did stick. And eventually, right, the Magna Carta lays the foundation for later documents such as the Constitution or Bill of Rights. The way I like to think about it is the Magna Carta is the flip phone, right, an old original version of the cell phone, where now we're on the iPhone 6. So it's the same ballpark, but a much more primitive or basic version. Now, some of the vocabulary that's important are some of the other key changes here. We had the Magna Carta, again, which meant great document. And we also have what comes out of King Edward, the grandson of King John, was the model parliament. And a model parliament was a form of government set up where a mixture of the king, as well as nobles, church officials, and what's really revolutionary, commoners, would sit down in the room together and govern. So there's the model parliament, again, the first version of maybe, or a more basic version of modern parliament. Now, one other thing that you want to remember coming out of this time was the idea of habeas corpus, a really revolutionary idea that states that in order for someone to spend time in jail, he must be charged with a crime. So here you have it. Here are some of the political changes that come out of England during this time, from King Henry, King John, and King Edward, and how these changes, right, increased the power of the king, or at times decreased the power of the king, increased and decreased the power of the local nobles, and essentially began to break down the system of feudalism. That's it from Mike Kaufman at High Five History.